So when you give to the poor, do not sound a trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, so that they may be honored by men. Truly I say to you, they have their reward in full. So our idiom today is to sound a trumpet. Now, we have an American idiom that sounds kind of similar to this. I know that you've heard it: blow your own horn, toot your own horn. And this may sound like that it comes from this Matthew 6, but the American version probably dates back to the medieval times where a trumpeter would blow a sound signifying that a king or a very high official has just arrived. And so the idea of blow your horn, toot your horn, this means to draw attention to yourself. Now, the Hebrew idiom sound the trumpet, there are some similarities between that and this American version that I just mentioned, in the sense that it also does have this idea of drawing attention to yourself, but the attention is specific to something. It's specifically in regards to charity or almsgiving. Now, to kind of unpack this, we're going to need to talk a little bit about the temple at the time of Yeshua. So the inner area of the temple had 3 courts. One of them was called the Court of the Women, and this contained the temple treasury where people donated their money. On the east part of this court was a colonnade that ran around the court. And within it, against the wall, were 13 chests or trumpets for charitable contributions. These 13 chests were narrow at the mouth and wide at the bottom. So they were shaped like trumpets. There were actually 11 treasure chests of the temple for the voluntary offerings of money for the half shekel tax. The specific objects were carefully marked on them, so everybody knew which receptacle was for what purpose. 9 were for receiving what was legally due by worshipers, and the other 4 were strictly voluntary gifts. So the Hebrew idiom, sound the trumpet, was most likely because of the form or the shape of these temple treasuries. So the person who would be putting in money into these treasuries, they would take their shekels and they would toss them in with such force to make a really loud sound. And so the money, think of it kind of going in a circular motion. So it would make this big sound and announce, everybody around would look, oh, they just gave voluntarily such and such amount of money. So those who were seeking glory for themselves in their charity, they were sounding the trumpet, as Matthew 6 says. These charity boxes were referred to as trumpets because of their shape. It's said that the narrow mouth was so that unscrupulous people would not take money out of the receptacles. Now, I don't think that they actually look like this artist drawing, but I wasn't able to find a picture besides this one to show that narrow mouth. So to walk around the charity boxes in a manner that drew attention to the giver, that is what the idiom means, to sound the trumpet. What we can learn here is don't sound a trumpet before you. Don't give charity in a way that calls attention to you. Matthew 6 says don't do it in the synagogues or in the streets. In the streets probably refers to making a show of giving money to someone who is begging in the streets. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Our acts of righteousness need to be sincere and not for an outward show. Now, I don't know about you, but I think this isn't just applying to acts of charity. Now, for some reason, this is something that I still need to be careful about. Sometimes I want to do righteous acts, especially when others are watching. Maybe not so much with charity, but with other righteous acts. I'm definitely a work in progress with this. But I am getting better at experiencing the better way with having an audience of one. How about you? I'd love to hear of your experiences in the comments. Until next time, keep those trumpets quiet.